Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this energy barrier effect. So as you can see, we have this energy barrier blocking the gate, and you can customize a lot of settings with this. You can also see that there is some distortion effects happening, and here you can also control this with blueprints. So if I move close to the energy barrier, you can see that it disappears, and when I move back it kind of appears. So you can control that even using a blueprint, and also you can change a lot of settings with this. So I will show you. So here I can change the color. So there is one body color and there is this highlight color that you can change whatever you want. So I will change this to green, and I will change this color to green, something like this. And then here we have this alpha. We can just reduce this or change this to 1 so it appears. And there's this boost value, so increasing that will increase the boost of the edges like this. And then there is a distortion. I can change this to 1 so it will look like this, and if I change this to 0 it looks like this, and 0.1 gives something like this. I will give a value of 0.4 so it kind of looks like this. So here you can see a grid. We can increase the grid amount to 1 so it will be more visible, and if I change that to 0 it won't be visible at all. So we have that. Then we have this grid tiling, which we can use to increase the tiling of the grid like this. So it kind of looks like this. So you can play around with these values. Then here we have this noise scale. If I change this to like 10, you can see the difference here. So if I change this to 0, it will look like this, and 1 gives a look like this. And if I change this to like 1000 or something, it is a very subtle effect, but you can see a small difference. So I will just reset that back to 1. Then here we can see the overall intensity. So if I change this to 1, it will be very intense, and 0.1 it will look like this. And then we have this radius. So if I increase the radius, it kind of disappears, and if I reduce the radius, it will show up more. So I will set this to 2.5 like this. And then there is a side boost, which is this. So if I change this to like 2, it will be a bit more invisible, and if I change that to like 1, the line streak will be invisible. If I change that to 0, and I can change this to like 100, it will be more visible. And then there is a speed. If I change that to 2, the noise effect will be faster. I will change that back to 1. Then there's a spear power. I can increase that so we get a look like this. And if I decrease the spear power, it will look like this. So I will set this to 2.4 so we get this. Then there is a V move, so we can move this center along the V axis, or we can move it up and down like this if you want. You can also put some texture here like a lock or something like that if you want, or some ruin spell or something like that if you want. Then there's a keep edge. So if I set this to 1, and if I press play, and if I walk into here, you can see that now it keeps the edge. Earlier the edge also disappeared, so we can use that. Then there is the FD, which controls the glow on the edges. So if I set this to like 2, you can see a faint glow. I can set this to like 3, so it looks like this. Then there is a distortion. I can set this to 1, it will be more distort. Then here I have the divisor. If I set this to 1, it will look like this. And if I set that divisor to 0, then all you can see is this. So I will set this to 0.2. So we get something like this. We can get all of these results. So here you can see a lot of textures, right? The grid texture and the water normal. So if I change that to something else, so if I change this water texture to this, I get something like this. And I can control all the things like before. I can set this to like this fire texture, so we get some look like this, or this macro texture. So you can experiment with all of these textures to get a unique result. And here we have this grid, right? So we can change the grid to like something like this. So it won't be visible, but if I change the grid amount to like 1, it will be more visible. So you can play around with that value also if you want. So if you want to download the entire project files, you can support me on my Patreon, and for $5 you can download this and the project files from almost all my previous tutorials. And if you already support me on my Patreon, thank you very much for supporting me there. So to create this, first we need to create a material. So right click, then material, and I will call this m_barrier. Then open it up. Then we will set this to a two-sided material because we need to see it from both sides, or maybe you don't really want to see it from both sides. So it depends on your project. So here, if I go behind this, I can see it from here also. So that depends on your project. If you only want to see it from one side, you can just set that to one-sided. Now we need to change the blending model to translucent. And we don't really want our energy barrier to be lit. We don't really want it to be affected by light. So we can change this to unlit. Then we have emissive color and opacity. We are just going to change these two inputs to get our effect. So the first thing we are going to do is bring some textures in. So we will just grab this smoke texture, this grid texture, this water texture, and this water normal texture, and we can bring that into the material. Then the first thing we are going to be working with is the smoke texture. We need that to create a noisy effect. So in order to get a noisy effect from this smoke texture, we need to pan this in all 4 directions. An easy way to do that is by getting motion forward chaos. But if you type for motion forward chaos, we cannot get that here. So there are so many different ways to get that. I will show you one way. So here you can type in height map. If you go to normal map from height map chaos, then open this up, we can get this material function. So just copy that and close this, and then here just press Ctrl V. So paste that, then just delete this. We don't really want this. So here if I open this up, you can see that it is just a texture sampler being panned in all 4 directions. So in the end, we kind of get this noisy effect. This is a bit of an expensive node. So if you want to reduce the expense, you can just pan 2 of them around and then discard the other 2. But for the tutorial, I'm going to be using all 4 directions. So here we cannot connect this to a texture because it is using a texture object here. So we need to right click and convert this to a texture object. Then connect this to the texture. Then for the divisor, we will press and hold S and click to get this scalar parameter, and I will call this divisor. This will control the intensity of the noise. Then we will create a speed parameter. Then we need to control the size of the texture or the tiling of the texture. For that we will press and hold U and click. So we get this texture coordinate. Then get a multiply by pressing holding M and clicking. Then connect this to the UV and get a scalar parameter, and we will call this noise tiling. Then connect this here. Now the output from this will be an RGBA output, even though this is a grayscale image. So we need to just have one linear value. So we can component mask this and we can just get the R channel. You can also get the green channel or the B channel, etc. It doesn't really matter since this is a grayscale image. All the channels have the same value. So here this will give us a linear value. Now we can get a lerp and we can connect this to the alpha and we can connect this to the emissive color. And here for the opacity, right now I will just press and hold 1 and click and change this value to 1 and connect this to the opacity. Now if I press and hold V and click, we get this vector parameter. We can call this color and we can connect this to B. And if I change this to like red, then I change the divisor to 1 and I can change the speed to 1 and I can change the noise styling to 1. So now you can see that there is something moving around. I can reduce the value of the divisor like this. So you can clearly see it. I hope you can see it. So if I just connect this to the opacity and you can see something moving around, right? I can reduce the divisor to like 0.02 or 0.2. You can see something moving around. So this will create the noise panning effect that we want. Now here for the alpha, we will get a sphere mask and we will get a textured coordinate and connect this to A. And for the B, we will get an append node and get append vector and connect this to B. Then get a scalar parameter and we can call this U move. We can get another scalar parameter and call this B move. Then connect this to the B here and get another scalar parameter and call this radius and connect this to radius here. Then the hardness we will set that to 0. Then we will just 1 minus this because we need the inverse of this. So if I just preview this, we cannot see anything. So I will just set the radius to like 2.5 or something like that. So now you can see that it is here and I can just use this. So I can move this U value to move the center point left and right, and I can change the V move. So I can move it up and down. So we can move it wherever we want. And now we can get a power node and we will get a scalar parameter and we will call the sphere power and we will set this to 2.35. Then connect this to the opacity. Then I will just stop previewing this. So now we have an effect like this. So now I can increase the divisor so it will be more visible. So this is what we get. I can also increase the color value to like 200 or something like that. So it will be more visible. Now we can just reduce the divisor a bit. And here, now if I increase the radius, you can see that the center hole will increase in size. Or I can reduce this. So we get a look like this. And I can also increase the power. Or reduce it. So it looks like this. We can also move this center position around like this. So this is what we want. So we will just drag this here and drag it here. So now we need to create the edge glow. For that we need a depth fade node. So right click and type in depth fade. Then we can get a scalar parameter and we can call this fade distance. And then connect this to fade distance. We need to 1 minus this. So this depth fade will give a 0 value or a value closer to 0 when the translucent mesh is near some other mesh. So we need to 1 minus that. So if you 1 minus that, we will get a 1 value when the translucent mesh is near some other mesh. So if I connect this to the opacity and click apply, and now I will just right click and create a material instance. Then I will bring a cube in, and if I add this here and if I open this up, and now if I just increase the fade distance, you can see that it is taking shape. We don't really want a very high value here. So in order to prevent that, we can just saturate this. So we will just connect a saturate before the opacity. So this saturate will change all the values to a value between 0 and 1. So it will just clamp the values. So now in order to boost the value of the edge, we can just get a layer and connect this here and connect this to the MC color. And here we can get a multiply and connect this to B, and we can get a scalar parameter, and we will call this edge boost. And now we will connect this to the alpha. And I will bring it here. So now we need to add this with the sphere mask and connect this here and connect this to the saturate and click apply. So now we get something like this. So if I just get a plane, and if I rotate this 90 degrees like this, and now if I just apply this to the plane, we get something like this. So here you can see that when it is near another mesh, it will have a line. So you can just decrease that like this. And here we have the edge boost. We can just set that to like 2 or 10. So any value you want, you can give it that. Now in order to create this electrical effects, here you can see some kind of lightning like effect. We can create that by using this water texture. So first of all, we need to orient this water texture to this center position. So in order to do that, we can get a texture coordinate. Then we can just subtract this texture coordinate by this append value. Then we can just normalize this back to 0 and 1. And now if I connect this to the UV, you can see that it is pointing to the hole here. So before that, we need to add a panel so we can get some movement. And I will change the X speed to like 1. You can also convert this to a parameter and change this in the instance. And now if I connect this to the saturate, we get something like this. So in order to have a hole in the middle, we can get an add, then we can get a multiply from here, and connect this here, then connect this to the add and connect this to the add here. Now if we connect this to the saturate, you can get a hole here, and also you can see the lightning streaks. So we want that lightning streak to have this boosted value. So in order to do that, we can get an add node and connect this here and connect this to the alpha, then connect this to the B key here. So you can see it here. Now we can get a boost for the lightning. So get a multiply and connect this here, and we will call this edge boost. I think we already have an edge boost. We will change this to line boost, and we can change this to like 10 or something like that. So we can view this on a plane. So it looks like this. So if we move this, you can move this around wherever you want. Now we need to distort these lines. So for that, we will get an add node, and we will connect this here, and we will connect this to the subtract. And here we will use the water texture, and here we will get a panel, and we will change this value to like 0.1, and we will change this value to like 0.05. Then we can just get the red and the green channel by masking this, and we can get a multiply. Then we can get a scalar parameter, and we can call this distortion amount. Then connect this to the B. Then connect this to B here. And now if I change the distortion amount to like 0.2 or something like that, you can see the distortion happening. So you can obviously increase the value to like 1. So it will be like this. I will change this back to like 0.2. Now we have the distortion. Now we need to add the grid. So in order to add the grid, we will get a texture coordinate. Then we will get a multiply. And we can connect this here. And we can connect this to here. And we can get a scalar parameter. And we can call this grid size or tiling. I will set this to like 10. And connect this here. And if I open up the grid, and if I go to the green channel, you can see that there's a grid in the green channel. So this is what we want. So here we will get the green channel. So get a multiply. And we can get a scalar parameter and call this grid amount. And right now I will set this to like 0.1 and connect this here. And here we will just add this with this one and connect this to the saturate. And here we will get a multiply. And we will just multiply this with this. And this with this. And connect this to the add here. And now the grid isn't really that visible. So now what we will do is that we will just get a multiply. And we will connect the multiply to this one. And we will connect the multiply to the grid also. Then we will get a lerp. And we will connect this here. And we can connect this to the MC color. And then we can connect this to the alpha. And now we can get another vector parameter. And we can call this highlight. And we can connect this to B here. And now I can change this to like some very big values like this. And I can increase the grid amount to like 2 or something like that. So it will be more visible. So you can see that it is kind of highlighting the grid. So before that I will just saturate this value. So we don't really want any of these alpha values going above 1 or below 0. So I will just saturate all of this. So this saturate node is very cheap. So you can use them. So now if I press apply. And we will go here. And I will just select this mesh. I have this plane on the gate. So I can just add that here. So now we get something like this. I can open this up. And then I can change a couple of the values. So I can just change this to like some red color. And now I can increase the radius. So I get something like this. And now I will just increase the edge distance like this. So we get something like this. And now we will add the distortion. To add the distortion, we need a normal map and also a refraction. For the refraction, we can get a lerp and connect this to the refraction. And here for A, I will give a value of 0.95. And for B, I will give a value of 0.25. So 1 is the refractive index of air. So if we give a value of 1, then there won't be any refraction. And now for the refraction alpha, we can saturate this and connect this to the alpha here. And we don't really have any refraction right now. So now we need to connect a normal map if you want refraction. So if I just connect this normal map here to the normal here. And then if I move it here and click apply, you should have some distortion. You can control the distortion using this lerp. Now in order to control the overall intensity, I can get a multiply and connect this here and connect this to the saturate, and I can call this scalar parameter overall, and I can connect this to the B here. And for the slider max, I will give a value of 1. And if I click apply, I can go here and change the overall value to like 1. so it will be our normal effect, and I can reduce the value, so it will be invisible, but only the refraction is visible. So in order to control this using a blueprint, there are two ways. One way is to get lerp all over here, and then you can just lerp the alpha value between 0 and 1. Another method is to get a make material attribute node, and then here we can connect this to the MC color, we can connect this to the opacity, we can connect this to the refraction, and we can connect this to the normal map, and then we can select this and select use material attributes, so we can connect this here, so it looks like this. So now we can set the overall value to like 1 here, so it will be visible. So now to lerp this on and off, we can get a blend node here, type in blend and blend material attributes, then you can connect this here, and then we can just duplicate this and connect this to the B here, and here for the emissive, opacity, normal, and for the refraction we will give a value of 1. And now we will get a scalar parameter, and we will call this alpha, and we can connect this to the alpha here, and I will set the slider max to like 1 and click apply. And here if I go to alpha and change this value to like 1, then it will disappear, and if I set this value to like 0, it will appear. Or you can do the opposite here, like 1 minus this, or you can interchange the connections. So here now at 0 it will be invisible, and at 1 it will be visible. Now if you want to have the edge to be visible, then you can just connect this to the MC color, and for the opacity here we can get an add node and connect this here and connect this to the opacity, and here we can get the edge value and we can connect this to the add here and click apply. So now when this alpha is 0, the edge will be visible, if that is what you want. So that's it. So if you want to control this using a blueprint, it is very simple. So I will just open this blueprint up and show you what I have done. So I will just open this up. So here I have just added a box collision. So here you can add box collision like this, and here in the event graph you can select the static mesh component, and if I select that, you can see that it has two elements, 0 and 1. So the first element is the texture of the gate, and the second element is our material. So if I drag this and I will create dynamic material instance and set the element index to 1, because this is element index 1, and then create a material instance and then promote this to a variable like this, we can get a custom parameter and call this whatever you want, like animate or something like that. Then connect that to a flip-flop, then get a timeline, and then create a curve like this. When time is 0, the value is 1, and when time is 2, the value is 0. So it kind of decreases. This curve can be any way you want. It doesn't really have to be like this. It can also be like this. It will just affect the easing in and out of the gate. So just create a float track like this and just shift click and create your values. Then after that, get the material reference you created from this variable and drag and type in set scalar parameter. And this parameter name, this alpha, should be the alpha value. The alpha value we created in the material here, this alpha 1. Then you can just animate that value between 0 and 1. So when this animate custom event is called, first time it will just play, and if it is called again, it will just revert from the location. So here you can set the timeline play rate to like 3. You can speed up or slow down using this new rate. So you can just drag this in and type in set play rate. So in order to call this animate custom event, you can select the box and then go here and then select begin overlap. And when the first person character overlap the box collision, we can get a do once and call the animate. And when we leave the box, we can call the animate again. So it will reverse that animation. So I think that's it for the tutorial, guys. If you want to download the entire project file, you can support me on my Patreon. Thanks for watching.